Christina Ricci's life is not the story of a girl who simply grew up famous. It is the story of a soul who learned very early that talent can open doors, but strength is what keeps you standing when the world tries to define, control, and consume you, because long before she understood fame, she was already living inside it. Stepping into Hollywood as a child with a presence far older than her years, captivating audiences with an intensity that felt both mysterious and unsettling, instantly becoming unforgettable. And while the world celebrated her uniqueness, very few understood the cost of growing up under constant observation, expectations, and pressure, where every expression is analyzed and every mistake magnified. And as she transitioned from childhood into adolescence, the industry that once adored her began to struggle with who she was becoming, because Christina Ricci never fit neatly into the boxes Hollywood prefers. She was not designed to be safe, predictable, or easily marketed. And rather than reshaping herself to fit someone else's fantasy, she leaned into her difference, choosing roles that explored darkness, vulnerability, rebellion, and psychological depth, even when those choices confused audiences or threatened her popularity. And this willingness to be uncomfortable became her defining strength, because instead of chasing approval, she chased authenticity, and in doing so she survived. Something many child stars do not: the loss of identity, and through years of transition, reinvention, and quiet resilience, she faced personal struggles, industry judgment, and the heavy weight of expectations placed on women in Hollywood, especially those who grow up in front of cameras. Yet she refused to disappear, refused to be erased, and refused to let her past define her limits, gradually rebuilding her career on her own terms, embracing complex characters that reflected real human contradictions rather than polished perfection. And as time passed, her story evolved into something far more powerful than early fame. It became a testament to endurance, self-ownership, and the courage to keep choosing yourself even when the world tries to move on. Because Christina Ricci's journey proves that survival is not loud, reinvention is not instant, and true power is often found in those who quietly refuse to give up on who they are becoming. As Christina Ricci moved further into adulthood, she began confronting a truth that many who rise early are forced to face: that fame does not grow with you, it freezes you in the age and image people first loved. And breaking free from that illusion requires emotional bravery most never see, because every role she chose after her childhood success was judged against a version of her that no longer existed. Yet instead of fighting that comparison, she used it as fuel, deliberately selecting characters that challenged comfort, explored trauma, obsession, resilience, and inner conflict, allowing her performances to carry scars rather than gloss, depth rather than decoration. And through these choices she reclaimed control over her narrative, proving that longevity is not about staying visible but staying true. And while the industry often punishes women for aging, changing, or refusing to conform, she continued to carve a space where complexity was valued, becoming a symbol for those who felt different, misunderstood, or pressured to become something they were never meant to be. And beyond the screen, her life reflected the same determination, navigating personal hardships with quiet strength, learning boundaries, rebuilding self-worth, and choosing peace over performance. And this alignment between her inner growth and artistic expression gave her later work a grounded intensity that resonated deeply, especially as audiences matured alongside her, recognizing the courage it takes to survive early success without losing yourself. And her resurgence reminded the world that comebacks are not about reclaiming fame, but reclaiming agency, that time away is not failure but preparation, and that some of the most meaningful chapters begin only after the spotlight dims. Because Christina Ricci's journey teaches that resilience is not dramatic, reinvention is not linear, and strength is built through persistence, self-awareness, and the refusal to let past definitions limit future possibility. With time, Christina Ricci's presence began to carry something rare in Hollywood: a sense of earned stillness, the calm that comes from surviving both success and struggle without becoming hardened or erased. And this maturity reshaped the way audiences perceived her, not as a former child star trying to reclaim relevance, but as a fully formed artist who had endured transformation and emerged with clarity. And as she stepped into roles that reflected emotional complexity, motherhood, trauma, humor, and strength, her performances felt grounded in lived experience, rather than ambition, reminding viewers that growth leaves a trace. And this authenticity became her quiet influence, inspiring a generation of women to redefine success beyond constant visibility, to honor boundaries and to trust their own timing. And through her work she challenged the industry's obsession with youth and perfection, proving that depth only increases with time, and that vulnerability can coexist with power. And while her journey was not loud or headline-driven, it was meaningful, built on patience, courage, and an unwavering commitment to self-respect. And this made her legacy stronger than momentary fame, because she demonstrated that survival itself can be an act of rebellion, that choosing yourself again and again is a form of victory, and that identity is not something you preserve, but something you continuously reclaim. And in the end, Christina Ricci's story stands as a reminder that you do not have to disappear just because the world expects you to, that transformation does not require permission, and that the most enduring success is the one that allows you to remain whole, honest, and unapologetically human. Asterisk, as Christina Ricci entered a phase of her life defined less by proving and more by presence, her work began to reflect a deeper kind of authority, the authority that comes from knowing who you are and no longer needing permission to exist loudly or quietly. And this evolution resonated strongly in an industry that often rewards noise over nuance, because she demonstrated that power can be subtle, that restraint can be magnetic, and that truth does not need decoration. And as audiences rediscovered her through layered, emotionally resonant performances, they recognized something familiar in her journey. The courage to survive identity shifts, the bravery to grow beyond early definitions, and the strength to rebuild without erasing the past. And this made her story especially inspiring for those who had once been celebrated and then overlooked, loved and then forgotten, confident and then uncertain, because Christina Ricci never chased the illusion of reclaiming her former spotlight. She simply kept evolving, allowing her work to mature alongside her life, and in doing so she reframed what longevity looks like: not constant dominance, but quiet relevance; not perfection, but persistence. And her presence became a reminder that real artistry does not age out, it deepens, that authenticity creates its own gravity, and that the most meaningful recognition often arrives when you are no longer asking for it, because at the heart of her story is a universal truth that growth is not about becoming more acceptable to the world, but becoming more aligned with yourself. And those who survive early success without losing their voice carry a wisdom that cannot be taught, only earned, making Christina Ricci's journey not just a Hollywood narrative, but a timeless lesson in resilience, self-respect, and the power of choosing evolution over expectation. By this stage of her journey, Christina Ricci had become something far more meaningful than a name associated with early fame. She had become a symbol of survival without self-betrayal, of growth without erasure, and of strength built quietly rather than theatrically. And this is what gives her story its lasting power, because she never attempted to rewrite her past. She integrated it, allowing every phase of her life to inform the next with honesty and grace. And through this integration she showed that identity is not fixed, that reinvention does not require rejection of who you were, only respect for who you are becoming. And as her work continued to resonate with audiences who had grown alongside her, it became clear that her influence extended beyond roles and performances into something deeply human, offering reassurance to anyone who has ever felt trapped by early expectations or misunderstood by outdated versions of themselves, because Christina Ricci's life demonstrates that it is possible to evolve without apology, to claim space without noise, and to remain authentic in a world that constantly pressures people to perform. And in embracing complexity rather than convenience, she left behind a legacy rooted not in constant visibility, but in consistency of self, proving that true success is measured not by how brightly you shine at one moment, but by how faithfully you continue to grow across a lifetime. And this message lingers long after the screen fades, reminding us that endurance is a form of courage, that quiet resilience shapes the strongest paths, and that sometimes the most powerful story is not the loudest one, but the one that survives intact. As Christina Ricci's journey continued to unfold, it became increasingly clear that her greatest achievement was not reinvention for survival, but reinvention for truth, a choice that requires far more courage because it offers no guarantee of applause.